Hello, welcome. We are gonna make some stew in the Instant Pot together. I have not made a cooking video in a very long time. If you have been following me, you know that like months ago, my camera stand broke, which I still don't have one, so it makes it a little harder to do cooking videos because the stand I have is basically just a tabletop one, and I can't angle the camera very well and blah, blah, blah. But because my shopping videos are less, and I feel there is one pesky fly in here that's going to drive me crazy. I just was like, I haven't made a video aside from a grocery haul recently in a long time. So I thought, let's make one. If you're new here, I'm Michelle. I am a mostly stay-at-home mom to two. I homeschool, and we strive to make as much from scratch, although right now we are in a difficult season of life, so there's a lot more grace and processed foods, and that's okay because that's the season we're in. I typically am a bulk food purchaser, but again, difficult season, needing to save every single penny we can, and so we're just kind of making do with some of the things we have and then doing little small grocery runs, and just that's life. So I'm gonna make some stew in my Instant Pot. I have some diced steak from the Riverbend company. Riverbend Ranch is a Melaleuca product, so they recently branched out into beef, and I had a subscription. I did cancel it while we are in a temporary rental because we have a freezer full of food and I need to get through it, and also just saving and not buying meat right now besides the butcher box I just got is where I'm saving the most money. And we have so much meat in our freezer, which I typically like to keep that way because I like to have food on hand, but we're gonna work through that while we're living in this situation. So I've got this diced steak I'm gonna use. It is, they have really good quality beef. If you wanna try Riverbend, I can get you a link. You do not have to be a Melaleuca customer to get the meat. And then I just have a bag of organic little yellow potatoes. These are from Azure last week. Told you this one fly, it's gonna drive me crazy. I have these little tiny baby carrots that we grew in pots at our old house. We were in a townhouse, and so we couldn't have gardens, but I had pots, and these are like an actual, like they're like a petite variety of carrots, so we grew those, so we're going to use those. And then just a yellow onion, and then some Better Than Bouillon. I like to keep this on hand for when I can't make beef stock like right now. This makes a great alternative, and it doesn't take up a bunch of shelf space like boxed beef broth. So that is the main ingredients. Of course, we're gonna season with seasonings and things like that, but let's get going. The first thing I'm gonna do is prep my veggies, and when those are ready, we'll come back and throw everything in the Instant Pot. The Instant Pot has kind of been my friend here. The stove is the oven is very finicky, and so it's not unusable, but it's not the best. So I've been trying to use mostly the stovetop and my Instant Pot for cooking, which is fine because now we're into the colder season. So soups and stews are always a win, and like larger cuts of meat that can cook like in the slow cooker, things like that. So let's cut these veggies. Okay, it is so bright. I've got my Instant Pot here, and like I said, I don't really have a great way to angle my camera, so we're just making do. I got my Instant Pot on the saute function, and I'm just putting some avocado oil in my pan, and then I'm gonna grab my onions. I chopped up my onions first, and I only used about a half of the onion. My kids don't love when onion is in things, and so I try to use it a little less. And then I usually season with like garlic powder or something. They have this idea that they don't like onion, but I think they just don't like knowing that there's pieces of onion in there. So we are gonna let these saute for a few minutes in here, and then I'm gonna add in my meat to let it brown a little, and then we'll do the carrots in there, but I'm gonna chop up the carrots, but we are gonna let the onions in the oil saute. All right, we are browning this meat, and we've got the onions in there, and I'm just gonna season it up, and you could of course use whatever season you like. That's some pepper, some granulated onion, some granulated garlic, and most of my seasonings I get from Azure Standard. I've got some thyme, and I am not adding any salt because I use the Better Than Bouillon and that has salt in it, so I don't need to add any more. And then I'm just gonna do a little bit of paprika in there, not a lot, just a little bit. And we're just gonna let this continue to brown up. And then once it's browned up a little bit, we'll add in some flour to thicken it, and the water and Better Than Bouillon and the carrots. It's still a little frozen in the middle. That's why I'm having a hard time getting it broken up, but that's all right. This is very, very thinly sliced meat because it's like steak. So this won't need to cook very long, but of course you'll need to add time if you're using like stew meat. It's gonna take longer. So, but like I said, I'm using things that I have on hand already. So we're just gonna continue to let that brown, and I'm gonna continue to cut my carrots. So the meat is mostly browned, so I'm gonna go ahead and take just some flour. This would just be the equivalent of like all-purpose flour. It's a little different because it's a heritage wheat, but all-purpose flour. Whatever flour you have, use that. And I didn't measure it. I'm not a big measurer when I cook. I just threw a couple spoonfuls in. Basically, we're gonna absorb the fat that's in there and let this thicken a little bit. It'll just help make our stew a little bit thicker. So I got that flour in there. So we've got the onions in there, our beef that's been browned, the seasonings, then the flour. And we're just gonna let this cook out for a minute. You just wanna get rid of that flour taste. It's gonna be what kind of makes your stew thick, and you can always thicken it more at the end if you need to. Okay, now we're gonna get our carrots. And I've got the carrots that we grew chopped up, and however many you like is however many you can put in there. It drives my husband crazy. I'm not a, when I cook, I don't measure. When I bake, I do, because baking is a little bit different. When I cook, I often just kind of fly by the seat of my pants, especially because I am a big cook from your pantry and just make do with what you have. Don't go buy new things. So, wonderful. Okay, that looks good. Now, we're going to get the Better Than Bouillon. I need to grab my measuring. I'm gonna do about 2 teaspoons to start out with. So for every cup of broth you would do a teaspoon with 1 cup of water. This is actually 2 1/4 teaspoon. This is my yeast measuring spoon. But I don't have everything with me, so I don't have all my utensils, and so I'm making do. So this is technically 2 1/4 teaspoons, but close enough to 2. And so if you're using Better Than Bouillon, for every 1 teaspoon of bouillon, you would do 1 cup of water. So just get that in there. Okay, I'm gonna cook that around, and then I'm gonna get my water because we want to deglaze this pan, eyes. We're gonna get a burn notice. So I'm gonna get my water, and then we'll get that in there. 2 cups of water right in. And we will probably need more, but that's what we're gonna start with because I don't want to add too much because it's really difficult to remove liquid from a soup or stew. So better to go under, and you can always add in than to add too much. So, and we're just kind of scraping off the brown bits that are in there. And I'm gonna turn off the saute function because I don't want it to continue to cook. And I apologize, this is not the greatest, it's not the worst for like the angles and things like that, but I'm still working with my tabletop stand because it wasn't in the budget before we had to move. It's definitely not in the budget now, but that's all right. I figure by showing our real life and what's going on in life, maybe it will encourage someone else to just kind of make do as well. Okay, so that is what we're leaving there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and cut up my potatoes, and then we're gonna get the potatoes in there, see if we need to add more water. And I think I might add some tomato in there. Maybe like some tomato paste. I haven't yet decided. I think I probably will. But first I'm gonna get the potatoes cut up. Right, I've got my potatoes, and I ended up with almost 4 cups of potatoes, but that's all right. I'm just gonna put all those in there. I just diced them up into bite-sized pieces. This is gonna be so good. I love beef stew. It's one of my favorite dinners. Oh, it smells so good. Okay, then I think we're gonna add in some tomato. Let's see. I'm just debating on if I wanna do tomato sauce. I think I'm gonna do tomato sauce. So I'm gonna add in some Bio Nature tomato paste. Tomato paste. And then also I panicked thinking I didn't hit record. Tomato paste. You guys, this is real life. Grab a spoon. And I'm just gonna do 2 good scoops of tomato paste. You could do tomato sauce, you could do diced tomatoes, you could omit it, but the tomato just kind of gives it a different depth of flavor or richness. I think we're gonna add a little bit more water in here because I want to make sure those potatoes and carrots get cooked up really well. And I think I'm gonna set it for 20 minutes. It's so sunny. Okay. I'm gonna get a little bit more water. I'm gonna add about another cup of water in here, and then we're gonna put the lid on, and we're gonna set it to sealing. Let me get some water. Cup of water in there, because we wanna make sure we create enough moisture in there to get a good pressure build up, I guess. Okay. Then we're gonna put our lid on, and I'm doing this from the back. There we go. So, okay, and then at the top you always want to make sure it's set to sealing, and then I'm just going to pressure cook this for 20 minutes. If you're using like beef stew meat, I would say you're going to want to go probably a little bit longer, and then I am going to let it naturally release for at least 10 minutes longer if I can. Ideally I'd let it to totally naturally release, but we'll see what time that is. So I'm just going to set this to 20 minutes and let it go. I let this naturally release for about a half an hour, and everything is very, very tender. It's a little soupy for me, so I'm just going to make a cornstarch slurry and just thicken it up a little bit with that, and then make some just buttered bread, buttered toast in the oven with some sourdough everything seasoning bread that I got from Aldi, and then I also popped a pear crumble or pear crisp in the oven, and we are gonna eat. Post a photo of the completed dinner after this, but I hope that you'll join me on the next one, and thanks for joining me this time. See ya.